My name is Beverly. I'm 32 years old. I was the black sheep of my family until the tables turned. For years, I was the convenient excuse for every problem, the scapegoat for a dysfunctional truth they just refused to see. My very existence seemed to be the source of all their discontent. If you've ever been made to feel like the outcast in your own family, the one who has to carry the weight of everyone else's issues, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This story is for you. It's about what happens when the scapegoat finally breaks free and builds a life so successful, the family has no choice but to look in the mirror. And hey, if you've ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest fans, let me know in the comments. Your story deserves to be heard, and I think you'll find you're not alone here. Growing up, my designated role in the family was the problem. Nobody ever said it out loud, of course, but the message was crystal clear in every interaction, every sideways glance, every sigh of frustration aimed in my direction. I was the sensitive one, the difficult one, the one who was just too much. It took years and a good therapist to give me the words for what was happening. I was the family scapegoat. I was basically a walking container for all the anxiety, shame, and anger my family couldn't deal with themselves. The double standards were just a part of daily life. I remember one afternoon when I was about 10, my older brother, the golden child, was tossing a baseball in the living room, even though he'd been told a dozen times not to. And then, crack. My grandmother's antique vase, the one she brought from the old country, was in pieces on the floor. My brother's face went white. When my mom walked in, his finger was already pointed at me. "He distracted me," he yelled. And just like that, the story was written. It didn't matter that I was in the corner reading a book. It didn't matter that I hadn't said a word. The family needed a bad guy, and the role was already cast. I spent the next month grounded, my allowance docked to pay for the damages, while my brother got comforted for being so shaken up. When I tried to protest, I was making excuses. My tears were dramatic. They weren't just blaming me, they were actively denying my reality, a special kind of mind game that makes you question your own sanity. Academics was another battlefield. I remember bursting through the door with a report card full of straight A's, my heart just pounding with pride. I handed it to my father. He glanced at it expressionless and said, "Are the classes getting easier these days?" No well done, no praise, just a subtle dig suggesting my success couldn't possibly be real. A few months later, my brother brought home a C plus in algebra. My parents threw a mini celebration and took him out for ice cream to reward his improvement. My A's were suspicious, but his C plus was a triumph. This dynamic teaches you a devastating lesson. Your best will never be good enough, while their mediocre will always be celebrated. Family gatherings were the absolute worst. They were master classes in making me feel small. I remember one Thanksgiving. I was a teenager, and the conversation turned to politics. I respectfully disagreed with something my uncle said. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I just offered a different view. The reaction was immediate. The table fell silent. My mother shot me a look of pure fury. My father cleared his throat and said, "Now is not the time for your contrarian nonsense. You always have to ruin everything." I was accused of being disrespectful, of starting a fight, of purposefully upsetting everyone. Challenging the groupthink was my biggest sin. I learned to just stay quiet, to make myself small, to nod and smile while feeling like a ghost at my own family's table. I was constantly on edge, trying to read the room, changing my behavior, and swallowing my own thoughts just to survive the night. But even my silence was used against me. It was called sullen or arrogant. There was no winning. I wasn't a person, I was a role they needed me to play. For years, I just took it. I internalized the shame, thinking that if I just tried harder or got quieter or achieved more, I could finally earn the love that they gave my brother so freely. I was stuck in a people pleasing trap, desperately trying to win a game that was rigged from the start. The breaking point didn't come with a big explosion, but with a quiet final conversation that chilled me to the bone. It was the spring I had to declare my college major. The family expectation was clear: business or law, just like my brother. But my passion was in tech and design. I'd spent years teaching myself to code, dreaming of starting my own software company. It was the one part of my life that felt like it was truly mine. I chose a family dinner to tell them. I was naive. I thought if I laid out my plan with passion and logic, they'd finally see me. I explained the whole thing: the major, the internships, the future I saw for myself. Silence, heavy, suffocating silence. My father put down his fork very slowly. He looked at me, not with anger, but with a look of pity and disappointment that was so much worse. "A tech business?" he said, his words dripping with disdain. "That's a hobby, not a career. You're throwing your future away on a childish fantasy." My mother chimed in, her voice full of fake concern. "Honey, we just want you to be secure. Your brother is going to law school. He'll be stable. Why can't you just follow his lead? Why do you always have to make things so difficult?" There it was again. The golden child as the standard I could never meet. I tried to explain the potential, but it was like talking to a brick wall. The final blow came from my father. He leaned forward, his eyes cold as ice. "Let me be clear," he said, his voice low and steady. "We will not support this. We won't pay for a degree in whatever this is. If you choose this path, you are on your own. And don't you dare come crawling back when you're broken and alone. This family won't have a place for a failure. This family won't have a place for a failure." In that moment, something inside me just snapped. The clarity was chilling. Their love, their support, their very idea of family, it was all conditional. It was a transaction. I had to fit into their box or I'd be cut off. It was never about my happiness. It was about my obedience. I finally saw it. I wasn't just the black sheep. I was a hostage, and staying meant the slow death of my soul. Leaving was the only way I was going to survive. I looked at their faces, my father's rigid certainty, my mother's anxious disapproval, my brother's smug look of victory, and I felt nothing but a huge, liberating distance. I was already gone. Walking away from them was the hardest and best thing I've ever done. The first few years were a wild mix of freedom and sheer terror. Their voices were a constant echo in my head, a chorus of doubt chanting, "Failure broke alone." I worked 3 jobs to get through school: barista in the morning, delivery driver at night, and freelance coding gigs in between. There were nights I lived on instant noodles, staring at my bank account, terrified I'd made a huge mistake. Every setback felt like proof they were right all along. The loneliness was a physical ache. Holidays were the worst, a brutal reminder of the family I didn't have anymore. While everyone else went home to family dinners, I spent Thanksgiving in the university library and Christmas debugging code for a client. I was completely on my own, and it was terrifying. The real turning point didn't come from some big success, but from a quiet conversation. A professor recommended I see a university therapist. I sat in her office, and for the first time, I told my entire story. I was braced for pity or disbelief. Instead, she listened and then she gave me a gift: a vocabulary, She introduced me to concepts like family systems theory, the scapegoat archetype, and narcissistic abuse. She helped me understand that my sensitivity wasn't a flaw. It was what made me the one to notice the dysfunction my family was desperate to ignore. I wasn't broken, I was the product of a broken system. With every session, I felt like I was taking back another piece of my own story. Armed with this new understanding, I started to build a real life. I sought out people who valued authenticity, who weren't scared of different opinions or real emotions. I found mentors who saw my passion as a powerful engine, not a childish fantasy. I built a chosen family, friends who gave me the safety, validation, and sense of belonging my biological family never did. They celebrated my wins and talked me through my failures without judgment. They taught me that love wasn't a transaction. My career started to take off. The tiny freelance business I ran from my dorm room grew. I poured all the pain, the anger, and the desperate need to prove myself into my work. My first little app got some traction. I reinvested every penny. I hired my first employee. A friend from my chosen family, we worked out of my tiny apartment, fueled by cheap coffee and a shared dream. Slowly, the years of struggle started to pay off. We landed our first round of seed funding. We moved into a real office. My hobby was becoming a real thriving company. And for the first time, I felt a deep sense of self worth that had nothing to do with my family's approval. I was building a world where I finally fit because it was a world I built myself. 7 years, 7 years of almost total silence. In that time, my life had completely transformed. My tech company was now a recognized name in the industry. I'd been interviewed by major publications. My success was public. Record. I'd found happiness, a loving partner, and the support of my chosen family. The echo of my father's words, broke and alone, had faded to a whisper. Then came the call. It was my mother. Her voice was strained, unnaturally cheerful. She chattered about the weather, a cousin's wedding, anything but the 7 year canyon between us. Finally, she got to the point. There was a family situation. My brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, had made a series of terrible business decisions. The law career hadn't worked out, and his ego led him to gamble away the family's assets on a risky venture that completely imploded. They were on the verge of financial ruin. They needed my help. She asked me to meet them. I felt a cold knot in my stomach, but also a strange sense of fate. This was it. Yes, I said. My office. Tuesday at 10. I chose my office for a reason. This was my turf, a physical symbol of the life I had built without them. When they walked in, their discomfort was obvious. My father, who always seemed like a giant in my childhood home, looked small and out of place among the glass walls and energy of my company. My mother wrung her hands, her eyes darting everywhere but at me. My brother stood behind them, his face a mask of resentment and shame. My mother started, spinning a tale of my brother being a victim of a bad market and shady partners. Zero accountability, just excuses. Same old pattern, I thought, just a different crisis. Then my father spoke, and the sheer nerve of it almost made me laugh. "We need your help," he said, his tone matter of fact. "We need a significant loan, $800,000. I leaned back in my chair and just let the silence hang there. I looked at each of them, really seeing them clearly for the first time without the filter of a child's fear. $800,000, I repeated slowly. I paused, then looked right at my father. That's a fascinating request because the last time we spoke about my finances, you told me, and I believe I'm quoting you correctly, that I shouldn't dare come crawling back when I was broke and alone. You said this family had no place for a failure. Funny how the roles have reversed, isn't it? A flash of anger crossed his face. This is not the time for childish games, he snapped. No, you're right, I said, my voice perfectly calm. This is a time for adult truths. For 7 years, you've shown zero interest in my life. Not when I was struggling, not when I celebrated my first win, not ever. You didn't call when my company was featured in Forbes. You didn't reach out when I got engaged. The only reason you're in my office today is because the golden child, the one you enabled his entire life, finally hit a wall he couldn't get around. And now you need the scapegoat to clean up the mess. My mother started to cry. We're your family, she whispered. Were you my family when you let him blame me for that? Vase? I asked, my voice still level. Were you my family when you dismissed my straight A's and celebrated his C plus? Were you my family that Thanksgiving you shut me down for having my own thoughts? A family is supposed to be a safe place. For me, it was a source of constant shame and the feeling that I was never, ever good enough. This crisis, I said, gesturing at them, isn't because of a bad market. It's the bill coming due for a broken system you've been running for decades. A system where one child was never taught accountability and the other was taught she had no worth. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city. My success wasn't built because of you. It was built in spite of you. It was fueled by every insult, every dismissal, every time you made me feel small. This company, this life, it was built on the very independence you told me would be my ruin. I turned back to face them. So, no, I won't be giving you $800,000. Eight. I'm not bailing you out. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to protect the peace I fought so damn hard to create. Their shock was absolute. They were so sure I'd say yes. The narcissistic rage was plain on my father's face. My brother muttered something about me being an ungrateful monster, but their words had no power anymore. I wasn't their emotional garbage can. I wasn't the black sheep. I was just someone they didn't know at all whose worth they had fatally misjudged. After they left my office, this incredible silence settled over me. There was no victory dance, no craving for revenge, just a quiet, deep, and unshakable peace. I had finally looked the source of my childhood trauma in the eye and refused to play my part. I held up a mirror, and for the first time, they couldn't smash it and blame me for the pieces. They had to look at their own reflection. Our relationship, such as it is now one of firm, distant boundaries. I'm no longer on the outside, looking in. I'm on the outside by my own choice. I control the interactions. There are polite occasional texts on birthdays, but the guilt, the obligation, the enmeshment, it's all gone. I've grieved for the family I wish I'd had, and I've accepted the one I got. Healing meant letting go of the hope that they would change and instead changing my relationship with their dysfunction. My life now is full. It's full of love from my partner and my chosen family who see me and celebrate me for who I am. It's full of purpose from my work, and it's full of the simple joy of waking up and feeling safe in my own skin, no longer bracing for the next emotional gut punch. And that is the lesson I really want to share. If you are the black sheep, if you are the truth teller in a family that runs on lies, please hear me. Your difference is not your deficit, it is your destiny. That sensitivity they call a weakness is actually a superpower that lets you see the truth. That independence they call rebellion is the engine of your freedom. The very things that got you cast out are the same things that will let you build a life of incredible authenticity and success. Your journey isn't about getting revenge, it's about reclamation, reclaiming your story, your worth, and your future. It's about breaking out of the role they gave you to become the person you were always meant to be. The ultimate vindication isn't watching them fail, it's watching you succeed. It's you finding peace. It's you breaking the cycle. The road isn't easy, it's lonely and it's painful. But on the other side of that pain is a freedom you can't even imagine. You get to build your own flock. This comment section is for you. It's a space for all the other black sheep who became the leaders of their own lives. So please share your story below. Your words might be the exact thing someone else needs to read today to know that they're not crazy, they're not broken, and most importantly, they are not alone. Thank you for listening. Remember to value your truth. It's the most powerful thing you will ever own.